Welcome to the Sports on Tap NEO High School Football Show. Be sure to join the conversation by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Use the hashtag SOTHSF. Here are your hosts, Rob Trump, Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy.
And welcome back to Sports on Tap. It's our Ohio High School football coverage covering the Southwestern Conference, the Greater Cleveland Conference, the Suburban League Conference, among others. Week 2 in the books, guys, and again, some good games, some upsets. Well, I don't know if you call them upsets in each division, but some, I guess, surprising games out of teams that I wasn't expecting.
Well, I mean, your league is in division play. I mean,
right.
So the division play has begun. Conference play in the Southwestern Conference is underway, whereas the GCC and the Suburban League are still living in the non-conference world.
Yeah, one game, Avon traveled to Florida for their vacation and got a big win. And the other guys, they stayed around town, played one non-conference game, and they're ready for conference now the rest of the way. And like I said, it's always fun. We were at our game of the week was Berea Mid-Park traveling to Westlake, which we'll get to later on in the show. And you want to talk about an offensive juggernaut with Berea Mid-Park.
Especially in that second half.
Good
Holy
Lord.
moly.
No doubt.
65 points, and I believe both teams combined scored over 100 in that game.
Yep.
So it was a fun game, and we'll cover that later on in the show. But, Josh, you have the Greater Cleveland Conference.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, let me introduce to everybody. I'm Rob Trump. We have Josh Jeffy, Ed Dick, and Sean Duffy here from Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio here for our Ohio High School football coverage. And now the Greater Cleveland Conference is covered by Josh Jeffy, who will give you a recap of Week 2's games. And, Josh, what do you have for us this week?
Well, we're going to start with the Strongsville Mustangs as they travel to Hudson to play the Hudson Explorers. And they came away with a 35-21 loss against Hudson. For Strongsville, their defense got off to a slow start, gave up 3 quick scores in the first half. The lead was cut, however, to 28-21 in the second half by a 4-yard score by Taylor Griffin. On the night, Taylor Griffin had 16 carries for 103 yards. That led all running backs. Johnny Major, the quarterback for the Mustangs, coming off of a really good 6-touchdown performance in Week 1. Struggled a little bit in this game, 9 of 22 for only 148 yards passing. And Strongsville did not have enough as they did go on with a 35-21 loss. They dropped to 1-1 on the season. Hudson improves to 2-0. Strongsville has their home opener September 8th, this Friday, against Canton Central Catholic. A little side note there. Our friends at Team Strongsville having their annual tailgate, community tailgate party, which we will not be attending, unfortunately, but that's nonetheless a good event. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of good local businesses around in the city of Strongsville. So please, if you're going to that game, head up there early and check out the community tailgate. Colette does a fine job with that particular event, among others. And like I said, a very good event if you're in the area going to the Mustangs game.
And free food and drink.
Free food,
somewhat,
yeah.
you get to taste the taste buds.
Giant Eagle Market District, I know, was a big provider the past few years. I'm sure they're going to be involved, among other businesses.
Right.
They get a couple thousand people to walk through there before the game, which is pretty
blast.
cool. The band walks right through to get the game going, and then you have the game right after. For Strongsville, hopefully they can pull out with a win this coming Friday. Moving on probably to one of the most highly anticipated games in the GCC this week was the Menor Cardinals as they took on the St. Ignatius Wildcats. Menor, though, goes down 41-31 in a pretty decent game. In this one, twice during this game, Menor was down by double digits. First 10-0, and then 24-10. But both times they rallied back to come within very close proximity of the Wildcats. Quarterback Tadas Tadarunas Big game for him, 25 of 43, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns. But, however, the defense for Mentor could not stop the running game of St. Ignatius and senior quarterback Kyle Hall, who ended the game with 291 yards, 3 touchdowns. As once again, Ignatius goes on to a 41-31 victory in a highly contested battle. Mentor drops to 1-1 on the season. They will actually host Glenville next week. St. Ignatius moves on to play another GCC opponent in Week 3. We'll mention that here momentarily. In a really good game, Solon with a 26-21 victory over Twinsburg. Solon improves to 2-0 on the season. Twinsburg drops to 1-1. Big plays were the name of the game in this game. Both Trayvon Raphael had TD receptions of 64 yards and 78 yards, and then senior running back Thomas Wilkes had TD runs of a short one, a 9-yard, but then he followed that up with an 80-yard TD run. Solon was up 20-7 with 1 minute left in the third quarter. Twinsburg rallied here in the fourth quarter, but it was J.T. Carver with a game-saving interception late in the fourth to save the game for the Comets, and they move on to their second victory of the year. They will travel to Stowe to play Stowe Monroe Falls in a very big early season matchup. And Twinsburg, I don't know who they're playing, to be honest with you. Let that one.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up.
I'll look
and
that
check.
one up. That's my bad. I forgot to put that in my game notes. Nope.
Oh, you're right there.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
They're playing Aurora.
Yes.
Twinsburg does play Aurora.
Nice.
Dynamite dropping, money.
They're only my school. I should probably know who they're playing.
That's okay. Next in the GCC, Euclid with a 27-21 victory over Aurora. This score would seem to be really close, and it was, but for the first half it was not. Euclid scored all 27 of their points in the first half. It was 27-0 at halftime. Euclid was really led on the offensive end by wide receiver Drayvon Lindsay, 189 yards, 3 touchdowns. Running back Ronald Lee also added 144 yards and 14 carries. What really hurt Euclid at the second half of this game, and Jeff Roski did say that his youth of his team really came out in the second half by penalties. They actually had 10 penalties resulting in for 97 yards in the second half, and that actually helped Aurora scored 14 unanswered points. But Euclid was able to hold enough to get the victory. They improved to 2-0. Aurora drops to 0-2. Euclid will play St. Ignatius this coming Friday, which should be an excellent game. The Highland Hornets continuing their GCC dominance with a 35-0 victory over the Medina Bees. Now, granted, Medina was missing 3 of their top offensive players, but there's not much you can say about a 35-0 walloping. This one was all Highland in this one. Medina drops to 1-1 on the season. Highland improves to 2-0 as they continue their successful season thus far. Elyria drops to 0-2 on the season with a 34-18 loss to the Bedford Bearcats. They improved to 2-0. Excuse me. Quarterback for Elyria Arno, 2 TD passes in this game, 236 yards. But really, the defense for Elyria let them down. They could not contain Kenneth Wilkins, who had 291 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns against them. Which, when you give up almost 300 yards rushing, you're not going to have that good of a day, especially on defensive end. Another bright spot for Elyria, Devian Williams, 7 receptions for 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. Once again, Elyria drops to 0-2. Bedford improves to 2-0. Elyria will travel to Lorraine this Friday in a big inter-county matchup there. Brunswick gets on the winning side of the margin this year with a 24-14 victory over Austintown Fitch. Brunswick was led in offense by Josh Stocco, 222 total yards. However, did leave the game late with a shoulder injury. No word on how that injury will affect the team going forward. Got to give props to the Brunswick defense. They did show up only giving up 83 yards of total passing in this game. So Brunswick did a good job there. And I got to give credit to where credit is due. With 41 seconds left in the game, kicker Nick DeMonte hit a 21-yard field goal to seal the game for the Blue Devils to give them their first victory in the Pinzoni era as head coach. So I don't know, Ed, maybe you could shed a little light on it, how the victory went for you guys. It's always good to get a victory, but getting that first one is always a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were lucky enough to get it in week 1 last year, and then it took us 8 more weeks to get win number 2. And I know that Coach Pinzoni certainly has designs to make sure that doesn't happen again. It was a hard-fought game. I mean, Austintown's a great team. We always play them well. They're a team that is a perennial playoff contender, and it's nice for them to come here and we get to send them home with a loss instead of us going out there and coming home with losses. It's generally what we haven't had too much good luck against them. Good games, but we haven't had good luck against them. So definitely something to build on as you'll discuss. Brunswick's actually we're going to go into conference play here next week. There is a little bit of a schedule snafu that we can talk about in later episodes, but we are going to go and dive into conference play right away. So it'll be nice to very, very important to get off on the right foot there. And we'll do what we can on the offensive side.
How about the kids on the team? I mean, what's their confidence like after getting that first win? Especially now you're going into conference play. Maybe they're building up a little confidence going into conference play now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once you see, once you make a change, a major change, you change the coaching staff, and you put all this time in, and you're changing everything. You're working hard, and the win not only gets you in the right side of the ledger, but it also gives you that confidence. It also says, you know what, everything that we've done, it was worth it. Yeah. It validates to a certain extent what the coaches have been preaching for the last X amount of months, and is certainly a sign of things to come. I mean, the schedule doesn't get any easier. I mean, you're playing a team like Highland and a team like Austintown pretty much every single week this year. So there's absolutely no room for letdowns, and it's very, very important for our players to realize that they can't take any days off, they can't take any weeks off. Otherwise, we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we're going to be under 500 again. I mean, this is a coaching staff that isn't used to that for sure. And we've been beaten down the last couple of years, for one reason or another, and it's time to get us back to where we need to be, and this is a good step forward.
Yeah, for sure. And Ed mentioned that they're going to be getting into conference play, and they're actually going to be starting conference play a week early against Shaker Heights. Shaker Heights 2-0 going into their matchup against Brunswick this Friday. They once again defeated a Center League team 41-6. They defeated John Adams this time. John Adams drops to 0-2 on the season. Shaker Heights defense forced 7 turnovers, 5 interceptions, 2 fumbles. This game was 41-0 at the half, so it was over relatively early. But quarterback for Shaker, Jameer Demukes, had 3 touchdowns in this game, 2 running, 1 passing, but on the defensive end also added 2 interceptions. So he was their playmaker for the game in a somewhat dominating fashion, 41-6. Shaker going into conference play 2-0. They will travel to Brunswick this Friday. Rob, that wraps up the GCC. A lot of good action. If I did have to pick the GCC Player of the Week, I'm going with Euclid wide receiver Drayvon Lindsay, 189 yards, 3 touchdowns in a 27-21 victory over Aurora. So congratulations to him and the Euclid Panthers for the victory. So, I mean, it's still wide open. Still, I guess really the only team looking at the GCC that's somewhat getting off to a rough start would be Elyria, 0-2. With a really tough loss against Bedford. But Medina, they're on the fringe here. They're got to see what they can do. According to Gazette, in this game, they went through various offensive packages trying to find something that worked, and it just did not work out for them. So they have a lot of work to go to do to see, one, who can establish, who could be their playmakers after losing 3 of their top offensive players, and then 3, who's going to step up as far as the senior leadership on the team. Granted, they do have a young team, but still, someone's going to need to step up before things get too out of hand. So it's going to be interesting to see. But we got one conference game this week, and then we get into it the following week. So it should be a lot of fun.
Now, were there any surprises to you in the GCC? You talked a little bit about Elyria going, 0-2. Medina struggling a little bit off the bat. Were there any surprises from any of the first few games in the GCC that you didn't think a team would play as well as they are so far? Or?
I wouldn't say there was many surprises. It's pretty much gone how the way it is. When you look at a team like, the prohibitive favorite would be Menor in the conference this year. They got some good senior leadership there. They played a tough St. Ignatius team, and they rallied back a couple times in that game. Lost by 10, but still, it's not, anything to write home about. I shouldn't say that. It's, nothing to hang your hat on.
And they always play,
they always
the tough
play
teams
tough
to start, but when they get in the conference play, it seems like they steady themselves out a little bit.
Again, and I say it every year, or every week so far, that I'm really interested to see what Shaker Heights does.
That's what I was about to say, actually.
They actually have, I think they have enough playmakers on both ends of the ball that can make some noise. And they went from not winning any conference games 2 years ago to, I believe, winning 3 last year. Now, they're my team that I said earlier in the season for our preview show. They're the team I'm going to watch. And now they're getting into it. This is a big game for them against Brunswick. They want, just like Ed said, Brunswick wants to get off to a good start in conference. So does Shaker Heights. I mean, whenever you play conference games, especially in the Greater Cleveland Conference, you got to win those games. You got to play hard every game, and every victory matters.
I mean, for the majority, you're looking at Division I points for pretty much all these games. So not only do you need to win for in the standings, but you also need to win for computer points, which we'll get into much later in the year when those start accumulating and the playoff picture starts taking shape.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't think those computer points in the beginning, means that much because you can't tell right now. But later on, that's when you look back and say, "Wow!" In week 1 and week 2. Brunswick got the Austintown Fitch game. How many points did that net them? Or, you can go down the line, or like we saw Olmsted Falls beat a Brecksville team, and Brecksville usually, get some wins during the season. So it's the early games that still do matter, but the conference is when it's going to get turned up a little bit.
And real quick, we're talking about computer points. You go to joeitel.com. He's got his computer points updated.
Yeah, he's on the ball, man.
So far, and I guess we're looking early. Brunswick would be tied for 9th. Medina would be tied for 11th. Elyria would be tied for 17th. That's in Division I, Region 2. And then if you're looking at Region 1, as far as GCC goes, you have Solon 5th, Euclid 9th, Strongsville 10th, Menor 11th, actually. And I believe that's 8 teams. Are we missing one?
Shaker's Division 2 now.
No, Shaker's Heights is actually tied for 6th.
Okay, I was saying, I thought they were D1.
So, interesting stuff.